Mr. Panettiere, please continue.
Thanks, Your Honor. You know, and all that, I forgot to go, but I'll try to push through. All right, now, one of the people that you said that you had spoken with was Susan Nicholson, right?
Yes.
Who's Susan Nicholson?
Dr. Susan Nicholson is MD, maybe an MD, PhD, I'm not certain exactly, who is the lead scientist and physician who has responsibility for that, the area of our consumer business that would be responsible for our baby products and others.
Okay. And the jury, I'm going to show you two clips of her deposition. The jury's already seen and ask you if she told you what she testified to here, okay? All right.
So, let me ask the question again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tests that you submitted to the FDA to determine whether there was asbestos in the talc you knew would not find tremolite at a low level, correct?
Yes.
And 6 of the tests that you submitted to the FDA you knew would not find chrysotile asbestos below 2 or 3%, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And did she tell you that, what you just saw?
No, she did not.
And let's look at one other clip from Dr. Nicholson.
Johnson & Johnson never provided the FDA with any asbestos test results on its cosmetic talc, according to your records, after 1973. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Did Dr. Nicholson tell you that, sir?
No, she did not.
The next issue I want to talk about is methodologies. And you had said, and I think we have you on Mad Money talking about this.
And by the way, throughout this process, we also not only use the best testing methodologies that were available, but we continue to improve them through the years. So that's really important to keep in mind.
All right, so that's what I want to talk to you now. And I want to ask if all the people that you've talked to, the experts that you talked to, and the experts that you've told us about, if they communicated some information to you, just as we did with what they communicated. Okay? So, the first document, this is Exhibit 2453. This is in evidence. Here you go, sir. So you don't have to crane your neck. In your honor.
Thank you.
Okay, and can we go back to the envelope, please? Okay, there it is. This is a memo from April 26th, 1973. Do you see that, sir?
Yes, I do.
Okay, it's a Johnson & Johnson memo. And I want to focus just on these first 2 paragraphs. The writer here, by the way,
Susan, can I take a moment to if we're going to go over this in depth, can I take some time to familiarize myself with the document?
You can. I understand that you have a tight schedule, so I don't want to have to bring you back, but you can take your time and do what you need to do.
I certainly, but to be able to give you a complete and comprehensive answer, I just want to make sure that I understand the context.
Let us know when you're ready.
And
Thank you,
before you do that, let me just ask you this question. Does this document look like one you've reviewed?
I don't remember just
Okay. Go ahead and
from
look at it.
30 seconds. Again, I'm not intimately familiar with the entire memo, but
Right. My goal here is just to see what information you've been provided and what you haven't been provided, okay? So, the first paragraph says, it is our joint conclusion that we should not rely on the clean mine approach as a protective device for baby powder in current asbestos or asbestos-form controversy. We believe this mine to be very clean. However, we are also confident that fiber-forming or fiber-type minerals could be found. The usefulness of the clean mine approach for asbestos is over. And here's what I want to focus on. It is possible that the technique of identification for asbestos or asbestos-form materials will be an optical approach. It probably will be some variation of the Macron method. This method, with appropriate concentrating techniques, will provide a good laboratory to identify asbestos or tremolite in a talc sample. So here's my question. In reading the Reuters article, you certainly saw where the author, Ms. Geariron, had a section on this concentration technique, correct?
yes.
Right? And this is a technique that, because you're looking at something that's mainly talc, tries to remove as much of the talc as you can to see what might remain. Fair?
It's a very complex methodology, as I understand, so I can't confirm if exactly what you're saying is correct, but I know that there are many different factors to it.
And of course, right here in 1973, they're saying that this method with appropriate concentrating techniques will permit a good laboratory to identify asbestos or tremolite in a talc sample. That's what they say, correct?
Similar to my earlier point, I think this is one comment made. What I do know later on is I understand that the FDA did not accept the concentration technique.
Are you talking about the FDA in 1976 where they reviewed the concentration technique for chrysotile and compared that to amphibole asbestos? Is that what you're making reference to?
I don't remember the specific instance, but I do know that there was a lot of debate and discussion between scientists, and these were only Johnson & Johnson experts in this area, but these were also external experts about this particular technique that came to a number of different conclusions. And again, I got into this topic when we saw it, and based upon the input that was provided me to our scientists, that there was a lot of discussion and debate, and what gave us assurance and confidence in the ultimate technique that we decided to employ and did in fact employ for testing.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to non-responsive.
Overruled.
This clean mine document was one of the ones that Ms. Geariron actually linked to. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
You said something about the FDA not wanting to use it, but you don't know why.
Can I clarify one of my earlier statements, Your Honor? Again, I think there may have been numerous links in that article that we felt were very selective in their review of the data. So the fact that there was a link from our position did not necessarily indicate that it was scientific fact or, in fact, accepted policy based upon what the experts had told me.
Okay.
So there may be a link, but that is not necessarily translate into a fact.
Okay. My question, though, goes back to what you just said. You said the FDA looked at concentration and didn't adopt it, but you know, literally, other than that, you know nothing about it, do you?
I'm not an expert in talc. However, I was assured in detail, because this has become such an issue, that our scientists, based upon their research, were very confident that the technique that we adopted took into consideration the... Can I finish my...
You can keep talking, yes, of course.
The benefits and the potential shortcomings of that particular methodology.
Okay. The only question I asked you was, other than volunteering for the jury, that the FDA had looked at it and had not adopted it, you don't know any details about it, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. I object to the argumentative nature of that. Mr. Gorski is here doing his level best to answer these questions, and I move to strike that comment.
That comment is stricken. Counsel, stick to the questions, not characterizations of it. Save that for another time.
You gave us a general statement. You do not know the underlying details about the FDA's decision to adopt concentration or not, do you?
I tried to answer in the most truthful and comprehensive way that I could based upon the advice and counsel that was given to me.
And I'm just asking, do you know any of the details?
I'm taking this very seriously.
I know.
And
I do.
I'm providing as much information as I can based upon the input that was provided. And that's the way I tried to answer the question.
By the way, when this, there was another one I wanted to ask on the health side, which is, did Johnson & Johnson place a warning on Johnson's baby powder and other talcs that said, this may contain small amounts of asbestos. Asbestos is a carcinogen. Did Johnson & Johnson do that?
I'm not aware that we have.
I'm going to show you, and I've handed to you, Exhibit 2458 already in evidence. You can see that this is a document called Proposed Specs for Analyzing Talc for Asbestos. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And if you go to the next page, there's a memo from May 16th, 1973. It's from T.H. Shelley to F.R. Roll at J&J.
Excuse me, could you, again, just give me, if we're going to go through this in detail, just a moment?
Sure.
Okay.
This is another document where they're talking about a concentrating, or here they say a pre-concentrating technique, correct?
Again, it's very difficult for me, other than at a very superficial level, to take this document from the 1970s that's dealing with a very technical issue to be able to provide much more information than what it states, or to understand its context.
And all I'm trying to do is understand the universe of what you have been shown and to vet whether or not it's the complete picture. You understand what I'm trying to do?
Yes.
Okay. So here, and let me see if I can ask you this general question. Do you agree that Johnson & Johnson has at all times been against using a concentration method to try to find asbestos in talc?
I don't know the exact legacy of decisions within the organization, other than from the documents that I previewed, and in talking with people who I understand have previewed all of the documentation, the scientists, that they were very confident in the methodologies that we ultimately adopted.
So here this says, England is considering a method of pre-concentrating the asbestos so as to be able to analyze by X-ray. They find no asbestos. By doing this with Italian talc, they find, Pooley, a 0.05% of a tremolite type in Vermont. Now, did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. If we go to the page that is marked 2 at the top, they add a little bit more detail. They say, starting halfway down, the second technique developed also by Dr. Pooley. And, sir, do you know that Dr. Pooley was a consultant to Johnson & Johnson for a couple decades?
I don't remember. I may have seen his name in some of the other preparation, but I don't recall specifically.
All right. The second technique developed also by Dr. Pooley involves pre-concentration of tremolite in talc, different procedure, followed by X-ray diffraction analysis. This technique has not been written up yet, but evidently, when applied to Vermont talc, the 0.05% of tremolite type is found. The limitation of this method is that it may be too sensitive. Did I read that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Johnson & Johnson owned the Vermont talc mine from the 60s until 1989. Is that true?
I don't know if those exact parameters are correct, but I know that we own those mines.
Sorry, counsel, what is that?
3080.
Thank you.
And Mr. Gorski, Colorado School of Mines, that was another consultant to Johnson & Johnson, correct?
Again, I don't remember them explicitly, but I know we used a number of external independent bodies
This is a
That we
report
work
from, I'm sorry.
that we worked with along through this period.
This is a report from them, a procedure to examine talc for the presence of chrysotile and tremolite actinolite fibers, 1973. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you about some questions on page 1 under introduction, but if you need to look at it, let me know when you're ready.
Okay.
Okay? So there, they state, as the impurity level becomes very low, less than 1%, it is necessary to examine increasingly larger amounts of sample in order to detect the impurity. As a result of the requirement to detect the proverbial needle in a haystack, we have evolved a procedure which pre-concentrates the impurities prior to examination. Again, this is now the second time you've seen this term pre-concentration, correct?
As I said earlier, that's what the document says, but what I don't know is how this compared to other scientific opinion at the time. What I do know is that when this was explained to me, that we ended up using a combination of other factors that was not only accepted by the FDA, but was felt to be very accurate, comprehensive, in its overall analytic ability. So I can't put that in context based upon this one document, or even just based upon this person's opinion in this paragraph.
All I asked you was whether or not this is the second time you've seen the word pre-concentration.
And I'm trying to put that in perspective for you, because you asked me how that relates to other information that was given to me. I'm trying to put it into that perspective for you.
Okay. But can we agree that I've just shown you this is now the second time you're seeing it today?
Yes.
Okay. And
What I
you
don't
also
know, if I can complete, is its relevance.
Your Honor, I have to object to non-response.
Yes, could you please just answer the question being asked? Counsel for Johnson & Johnson will have an opportunity on cross-examination. Continue.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Sir, you keep saying the FDA approved your methods. Is that what did you say that?
It's my understanding that we worked jointly with the FDA. I'm not a regulatory expert, so I can't say whether it was technically approved, but my understanding is that the FDA accepted the methodologies that we were using.
You understand there's no FDA regulation for testing cosmetic talc for asbestos. You understand that?
I don't understand all the nuances of the regulation in this particular area, but based upon what people have told me, the FDA was accepting of the process that we followed.
Again, they've told you that, your people have told you that. Have you ever seen any documents that actually demonstrate that?
I've received reviews from them that would indicate that their position was in fact adopted by others in the field.
So, are you aware that in the early 70s there was an FDA analysis method proposed, and Johnson & Johnson and the CTFA went to the FDA and said, no, we'll self-regulate, and the FDA method was never actually put into regulation? Do you know that general background?
I know that general background we're viewing for today, yes.
All right. So going back to this document from Colorado School of Mines, what they said, you're a consultant, based on past experience with detecting and identifying minerals when present at low levels, a concentration of the phase to be detected was considered essential to the success of any suggested procedure. Did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
And again, that's in 73. So now we had, so we can't say it's a clean mine document anymore, 73. We have Dr. Pooley in 73 being able to pre-concentrate and find tremolite-type asbestos in Vermont. And now we have this one. Okay? So now, I want to show you, with regard to, you brought up the FDA again, so I want to show you, this is Exhibit 2059.
May we approach on this line of questioning now?
Thank you.
First, 1977. You see that?
Yes, I do.
Another meeting of the CTFA, and this one has some members of FDA. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And on the second page, they compare the proposed methods, the CTFA method and the FDA method. Do you see that comparison?
Yes, I do.
And do you see that they have a row for sensitivity?
Yes, I do.
Right. The sensitivity for CTFA is down to 0.5%, and the sensitivity for FDA is 0.1%, right?
Correct.
0.1.
As stated on the document.
Sure. 0.1% is 5 times more sensitive than 0.5%, isn't it?
Again, I didn't notice anyone from Johnson & Johnson on the front page as being present at this meeting, so I'm not sure what the discussion may have been. And so I really can't provide any other context.
Well, you know, that's why they take minutes, so you understand what the discussion was. And do you see here that the FDA method that's being reported is 5 times more sensitive than the CTFA method, sir? Is that what it says?
Again, that's what the report says, but I don't know how that would relate since, again, based on this, I'm not sure even if we were at the meeting.
And, sir, were you shown that?
I don't remember if I saw that. Again, I saw many documents if I saw that specific document.
You had another consultant from Dartmouth, R.C. Reynolds. There you go. Here are your Honor.
Thank you.
This is already in evidence. This is Exhibit 3137. Do you see, sir, this is from March 1974?
I do.
And we've been in 73, now we're in 74. And you can see this says, the purpose of this study is to develop methods for measuring the concentration of asbestiform amphiboles in fine-grained talc products and talc ores. So you have that context. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
All right. What he says here is, for reasons described above, a concentration technique is mandatory because it brings the amphiboles into a reasonable concentration range for optical or other methods of analysis. Such a method has been developed, and it was described in this report. And so now you've got Reynolds at Dartmouth, and you had Colorado School of Mines saying it was, they said, essential. He says mandatory, right?
That's what it says.
All right. But Johnson & Johnson was not interested in the concentration method. Is that true?
I can't state exactly what our position was along every step of the way. It's, as I mentioned earlier, it's my understanding that after multiple internal and external experts looked at this methodology, that we ultimately came to our position that we felt was the best, most accurate manner to do the testing.
Are you aware that ISO, the International Standards Organization, has a pre-concentration technique to find asbestos in talc? Did you know that?
No.
Do you know who Dr. Matthew Sanchez is?
I've heard of Dr. Sanchez, but I can't comment beyond that.
Do you know whether or not he's an expert that Johnson & Johnson has hired in its litigation cases?
I believe he may be, but I don't have full recall.
This is dated 18 February 75, so we've got 73, 74, and now 75. Do you see this document, sir? This is a letter, and it's just a one-page letter. It's Exhibit 3179. I'll let you take a look at that, and then I'll ask you some questions.
Okay.
Okay, so see here you've got this individual from J&J Limited to Johnson & Johnson here in New Brunswick, and he says, I understand that you are the chairman of the CTFA Committee on Analytical Methods. I serve on the TPF. Now that's the Toilet Preparations Federation in the UK. Did you know that?
No.
Okay. Learn something every day. Working Party and the TPF Analytical Subcommittee. He says, I've enclosed our test method for the proposed X-ray technique, which was drawn up by Boots Limited in conjunction with Dr. Pooley. Now, you and I looked at Dr. Pooley's method from 1973. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. We deliberately have not included a concentration technique as we felt it would not be in worldwide company interest to do this. First of all, did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. And so at this point, Johnson & Johnson Limited is saying they don't believe it would be in the worldwide company interest, right?
I'm not certain that conclusion can be drawn from this because if this was just one person in the UK, I'm not sure if in fact they would have been responsible for a global decision. This may have been, again, input along the way, but in terms of who was making a final decision or a final recommendation and where this would fit into that decision-making process, I can't tell from this one page.
I appreciate that. And that's true. Letters are written usually by just one person. But following up to this, Johnson & Johnson never did adopt a concentration technique. And you know that to be true, correct?
Right. But what I don't understand is there may have been other good reasons by people that he worked for example, in this decision-making process that would have taken another decision because they believed in a different methodology, and I can't assess that based upon that one document.
Okay. That was not a document you had been shown before, right?
I don't remember that particular document.
This one is Exhibit 3334. It's dated February 28th, 1975, so the same year. Do you see that?
I did.
This one is not UK. This is right here, correct?
The heading is right here in New Brunswick,
Right?
yes.
And typically the folks in the UK don't have the New Brunswick letterhead, do they?
I don't know how it operated back in 1975.
Well, you can
I was
see
15. I'm not sure if you were born yet.
75, I was on the way.
Okay.
So, Robert Roll, this is from Robert Roll at J&J to the fella at Johnson & Johnson in the UK. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay. And he writes this on the last page. We are presently practicing and evaluating the Pooley flotation method, so we are not in the position to recommend it at this time. Besides, we feel that a detectability limit with our two present methods of 0.05 and 0.1 is reasonable and provides us a safety margin of 48,300 times. Now, I'm going to stop there. Sir, you understand that what they're saying there is if you can detect something down to 0.5 and 0.1, then you wouldn't be detecting anything under that. You understand that?
I understand.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, 1%. Our major problem with the Pooley procedure is that since one can continually recycle the tailings, the concentrate, given enough time, it is possible to arrive at levels of detectability of asbestos and talc in the ppm range. At what stage of recycling do you stop? we really want to exclude concentration techniques in any proposed analytical procedure and are really looking at this method very quietly so that we will be informed and up to date with this area of technology. We want to avoid promotion of this approach. Did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
And this person, at least this one person who wrote this letter, said they wanted to exclude a concentration method, correct?
I can only conclude what is shown in this one document.
And that's what he concluded.
Yes.
You're aware, sir, are you not, that your own consultant, R.J. Lee Group, has given you information about the appropriateness of your transmission electron microscopy methods for looking for asbestos in talc, correct?
I know that R.J. Lee was a contractor that we worked with, but beyond that, I can't be certain as to what each and every of their specific recommendations would have been.
That's fine, and no one would expect you to know every single thing. But R.J. Lee is a contractor that you've worked with, Johnson & Johnson has worked with for several decades. Do you know?
Sidebar. Go ahead.
Your Honor, I'm told to offer this in evidence in case it's not in evidence. We offer it in evidence.
We would object at this time, Your Honor, with this witness. No foundation is laid to put this into evidence with Mr. Gorski. He's never seen this document and is not here to talk about R.J. Lee testimony.
Thank you. It's a company document. I'm going to allow this document in at this point in time relative to the one portion you wish to utilize with this witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay. So on page 5, sir, well, first of all, just for, we know that this is an audit of R.J. Lee by Johnson & Johnson, correct?
I'm not certain exactly what it is, what I've been able to read. It just says R.J. Lee on top, and then it's got the comments below.
Johnson & Johnson audits its vendors, correct?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And this is an auditing report, right?
I'm taking you at face value. That's what I would understand it to be based upon what I see, but I haven't seen this report before.
That's fair. But and to be clear, I'm only taking the document at face value, contract manufacturing audit report, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to ask you about one small portion of this. Under observations on page 5, you see here where it says observation, attached are the audit findings.
Yes.
It says there was no current TM7024 for asbestos at the site. R.J. Lee also indicated that the test method was not an optimal method for asbestos testing. Did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
Do you understand, sir, that TM7024 is Johnson & Johnson's TEM, or transmission electron microscopy method, for analyzing their talc for asbestos?
I've heard that referred to as such in the past, yes.
And this date, where they say that your method is not optimal for asbestos testing, this is right here at 2012, right?
Correct.
Do you know whether or not that method is still in effect today that Johnson & Johnson is using?
It's my understanding that we are utilizing a combination of microscopy methodologies with all of our talc and baby powder production.
Do you have an understanding as to what percentage of the testing of Johnson & Johnson's talc is done down to that 0.5% sensitivity, or what is done to a greater sensitivity?
Again, I am not a geologist or an expert in this area, and what I've been told is that our testing methodologies, our sampling methodologies, in fact represent those accepted and confirmed by both internal and external bodies to ensure the safety of the product.
I'm getting right towards the end here. One of the other things you've said, of course, one of the main points you've said on Mad Money, on the video on the Johnson & Johnson website, is that you believe that Johnson & Johnson's talc does not contain asbestos, correct?
Correct.
All right. But you have not specifically gone through all of the documents, and there's thousands. You haven't done that. Fair?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, this is in evidence. It's Exhibit 2048, going back to 1974. And this is a Johnson & Johnson memo. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay. This is a memo of a meeting with the Colorado School of Mines. And you can see that it reflects they inspected and authorized assembly of high-pressure assembly and following experiments. 1. To establish the destruction of tremolite in presence of Vermont talc. 2. Establish destruction of chrysotile in presence of Vermont talc. 3. Determine whether or not fibrous structure is retained or destroyed in above. Okay. Do you see that?
I do.
And it says the above to be run on low key up to point where we can file patent protection, right?
Yes.
So this is a document, just on its face, sir, where they are studying whether or not they can destroy the tremolite or the chrysotile in Vermont talc, correct?
I can only comment on what it said. What I don't know, for example, is that what this mine was. Was this industrial use talc? Was this a cosmetic talc? Was it from the same area of the mine? Where I have no context for that whatsoever.
Well, and that would be something that I would ask you. Do you know?
No, I don't have. I just stated I don't have context with it.
Let's talk about something that is the cosmetic talc. This is already in evidence, Exhibit 2049. Do you see, sir, that this is a April 24, 1974 report called Examination of Talc Samples, Argonaut Ore Body?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And for context, if we turn, it says, an intensive examination has been made by X-ray diffraction and electron microscopy of 38 core samples taken from a new ore body which Windsor Minerals, Inc. are contemplating exploiting. The examination was undertaken to determine the mineralogical content of the core samples and, in particular, whether or not there was any significant content of asbestiform minerals in the ore body. For comparison, 3 core samples from the current ore body were also examined. Okay. Now, first of all, Johnson & Johnson, it is your policy, and as CEO, it's your policy that there be 0 asbestos in baby powder, correct?
We would want no asbestos in our baby powder.
No asbestos. There should never be any, correct?
We would want no asbestos in our baby powder.
And the flip side of that is there should not be any, correct?
It's just as I said.
You said you didn't want any.
No, I said correct. There should not be any.
Okay. So they're looking at a new ore body called Argonaut, and they're comparing it to 3 cores of the ore body that they're already using, right?
Again, I've never seen this document before, so it's difficult, if not impossible, for me to do basically confirm what you're reading off the chart.
Right, and I'm going to, we're not going to interpret it, but this is the issue I'm talking to you about. You have never seen this document before, correct?
No, I have not.
Okay.
But I wouldn't necessarily expect to. I would have expected people who have studied this for years, who have deep, detailed knowledge in this area, to provide me counsel and advice and actually make a scientific determination on how this compares with all the other evidence, all the other testing, internal and external, that's been conducted.
You know, the core sampling of an ore body is pretty extensive. Do you know that?
I'm not familiar
And
with
again,
that testing methodology.
in your years of leadership within Johnson & Johnson and the subsidiaries, has there ever been an issue where you've asked for information from your people? Ever been a time where you asked for information from your people and you thought, you know what, I just need to look at this myself? Has that happened before?
Yes, that's happened.
Okay. And sir, do you agree that having seen some of these documents that at the very least when it comes to the issue of asbestos, a carcinogen in baby powder, at the very least, you would want to go back down the street when you get off the stand today and do a little bit more work to determine if there's really a problem?
I have asked and been engaged in multiple conversations with our experts who have spent years studying these issues, who have expressed their utmost confidence in the data based upon the methodology that was used and looking at the totality of information that's been collected throughout these decades.
Well, this is part of that. You understand, this is part of that record.
I understand. And it's not unusual in science to have conflicting point of views.
Well, go ahead.
Can I finish?
Yes.
Because that's something that takes place between scientists where you can get, and I think that shows good diligence, but ultimately it has to be put into the context of the totality of the information, and that is what I trust and rely on our experts who have done this with my challenge and with my questioning along the way, but they have much more insight and credibility in ultimately determining our position that we take.
Is the answer then no? When you get off the stand today, you're not going to go look at this and do any more work to try to say, hey, you know what? I saw some new documents today. I want to look at those, so you're not going to do that.
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative and he's answered.
Objection sustained. Let's move
So
on.
if you see here, sir, it says 15 of the 38 samples did show an asbestiform mineral. Only one exceeded an estimated level of approximately 0.0005%. Now, here's the question I want to ask. Do you understand that even at that level, even at lower levels, because asbestos fibers are so small, you can have millions and millions of asbestos fibers per gram, even at by weight percentages that are very low?
Objection, Your Honor. This is proper questioning of an expert, not of Mr. Gorski's.
Objection sustained. Let's move on.
It says, it is anticipated that beneficiation of the ore would significantly reduce these low levels, and that therefore the beneficiated ore would prove to be free of any asbestiform mineral. Have you read the testimony of your corporate representative, John Hopkins?
I'm familiar with
Okay.
John Hopkins as an expert. I've seen some of his testimony and information, but not all of it.
Well, let me ask you then, did you see any of his testimony, watch it or read it, where he said that, look,
Objection, Your Honor. He just said he didn't see if there's no foundation. The jury's already heard Dr. Hopkins for many days.
just say,
Finish the question.
did you see or read the portions of his testimony where he said, we knew that if there was asbestos present, it would not be removed by beneficiation? I just want to know if you saw that.
Same objection, Your Honor.
Overruled. You could answer.
I don't remember that specific comment.
Sir, do you see under introduction that says, an intensive investigation of 38 core samples taken from the ore body and 3 samples taken from their currently used ore was therefore carried out using the techniques of X-ray diffraction and transmission electron microscopy combined with electron diffraction. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And if we go to right here, it says, as will be seen from Table 2, only 2 samples showed a level of asbestos above 0.0005%. The actual figures being 0.007 and 0.001 respectively. For chrysotile asbestos plus approximately 0.0001% of fibrous tremolite. So here they're saying they found chrysotile asbestos and fibrous tremolite, right, sir?
Yes.
Excluding these samples, probably means excluding, typo. The remaining samples which showed asbestiform fibers are exhibiting levels which are no higher than has been seen in a raw composite used to manufacture a finished product. Now, had you seen that sentence before, sir?
No, I'm not.
The levels of chrysotile observed in the 2 high samples is only an order of magnitude above this and would presumably be reduced considerably by your beneficiating process. Did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
Macron was a longtime consultant to Johnson & Johnson, correct?
That's my understanding.
And they found asbestos not only in an ore body that they were looking to exploit, but in the current ore they were then using, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel, the question isn't proper, drawing conclusions from the document.
Objection overruled. You can answer.
I can't speculate based upon the fact that I don't have that detailed level of knowledge based upon this one document that's being put in front of me. And again, I don't even understand where this, if this talc was used or where was it used, and how these findings may have affected decisions in the organization. I don't know.
Yet, there's a lot you don't know, admittedly. You went on national television and you told the country, whoever watches Mad Money across the ocean, that there was no asbestos. But the truth is, you had very little personal knowledge about whether or not that was true, correct?
I had knowledge that was provided to me by our experts who had deep knowledge in these particular areas, and who I trust and have great credibility in these fields.
And Your Honor, for completeness, I'd ask that counsel read from the conclusion on the last page of the document we've been looking at. The very last page.
The examination of 41 core samples, 38 of them from a new talc ore body, using the techniques of X-ray diffraction, electron microscopy, and selected area electron diffraction have shown that, even prior to beneficiation, this material is of extremely high grade, substantially asbestos-free, and of a quality which we associate with cosmetic-grade talc. In only 2 samples was a level of chrysotile observed, which was higher than 0.0005%. Chrysotile levels of this order of magnitude might well arise during the taking and handling of samples. Did I read that right?
Yes.
The next page, the final page.
It is our conclusion, based on the platiness or platiness of the material and its freedom from asbestiform minerals, that the ore body would be suitable for use in high-quality cosmetic and toiletry products. Did I read that right?
Yes.
And what they say earlier is, there's these low amounts by percentage weight, and we think they would be removed by your beneficiation, don't they?
Again, I can't make that conclusion just based on that review of the one document in this time frame.
You know that Johnson & Johnson actually ran experiments in 1974 to try and add reagents or chemicals to pull out any asbestos to the extent it was present, don't you?
I know that there were a number of methodologies that were tested and researched at the time.
Okay. This is Exhibit 2047. It's in evidence. Here you go, sir. This is one of those documents that was linked by the Reuters article. I want to ask you just a few quick things about it. By way of introduction.
Can I just make a statement?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, this is probably 50 pages. It's very difficult for me to add any context other than the points that you have selected. So I'm not sure if I can add any credible information to this.
Well, okay, so let's take a pause then. The Reuters article came out over a year ago, right?
Yes.
And that article linked to a bunch of Johnson & Johnson documents, including, and I have all the Reuters back up here, this document that I'm showing you right now, right? In the intervening year and 2 months, or year and a month, you have not sat down to actually appreciate and learn what these documents say. You have relied upon your people to tell you what the ultimate conclusion is, correct?
That's not an accurate representation of what I've stated or what I've experienced.
This document,
If I can explain myself.
Please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have engaged with and talked to our teams on numerous occasions. And each and every time, they have reviewed the methodologies, accusations being made, and while I did not personally review each and every document in detail, the level of experience and the track record that these teams, both internal and external, have, I trust in their advice and counsel to be guiding along the way. And certainly there were times when I asked for additional information where we would go back and forth. I think take appropriate measure on something in this matter. But I would have to rely on the experts for their counsel, given their level of knowledge and education and experience in this field.
You know, and I appreciate that. You had said that you had, in some cases, jumped in to really get to the bottom of something in your years at Johnson & Johnson, right?
Yes.
And you said here you just feel you really need to trust the experts, right?
That's not what I've said. I've said on numerous times that there were particular issues where I would challenge them and ask them to go a level deeper with me, just as I would if I was dealing with an issue in other areas of our business. What I'm saying is, do I do that with each and every document? No. But there were clearly times when I said, I need to better understand why we made a particular decision.
Was this one?
And it was from that review and from that kind of debate that I had developed the confidence to make the statements that I made.
Was this one of those documents?
I don't remember if we reviewed this particular document or some of the conclusions that were being drawn in the article about the document, but they were very comprehensive in their review of the article and all of the alleged backup materials that they reviewed with me.
And you've said that. Okay. What this says is Windsor Minerals has been actively engaged in a froth flotation research program for the past year and a half. This program has developed 2 flotation reagent systems which offer substantial advantages to the Windsor flotation process from an economic, purity, and potential health hazard point of view. Right? So we have that going in. You understand they were experimenting by adding different chemicals, right?
I'm taking you at face value on that, yes.
Okay. I just read reagent. You understand a reagent is a chemical?
Yes.
Okay. Here it says, summary and remarks. The use of citric acid in the depression of chrysotile asbestos and other mineral species has been developed at Windsor Minerals in response to potential need for a means to exclude extremely low levels of these contaminants from the finished product of the beneficiation process. Now, we had just seen a document where they did a core analysis, where they found low levels of chrysotile asbestos, correct?
Yes.
They also found some tremolo, but they were focusing on chrysotile, correct, sir?
According to the report, that's what it said.
So now they're talking about a way to try to remove these from the beneficiation process, correct?
Correct.
It says, the use of these systems is strongly urged by this writer to provide the protection against what are currently considered to be minerals presenting a severe health hazard and are potentially present in all talc ores in use at this time. In closing, based on Windsor's knowledge of the physical chemistry of talc and upon the results of all work performed to date, it is our strong belief that the use of these new reagent systems will not alter the salient consumer properties of the raw material supplied or the finished baby powder sold under the J&J name. Did I read that right?
Yes.
Now look, on page, it's page marked 2, but the Bates stamp is 5033, if you want to look at it.
What page is it?
5033 is the Bates stamp.
I don't have 5033.
You don't.
Mine ends at 5021.
Can I take that?
31.
Yes, so does mine.
It does?
The witness has the same concern.
Okay. Okay, so apparently mine was the only one that had the full. I'll hand it to the witness.
Show it to counsel
Okay.
first. You can show it directly to the witness.
Take a peek at that, and once you have, let me know. And we'll
Just the page?
5033.
Is there a particular area you want
Counsel.
Mr. Gorski
Right
to
at
look
the
at?
right at the top of the page under conclusions. And you can hold on to that. I got another copy. they're looking at three things. They're looking at a reagent called ultra-wet, N-butanol, and ultra-wet DS, right?
Your Honor, at this point, I renew my objection to counsel simply reading from documents with no foundation that this witness or inquiry into the statements he made.
Noted. Continue.
Going to, under experimental, it says, ground ore from the Hammondsville mine was doped with 1% by weight of the fibrous form of anthophyllite, which occurs as a rare mineral in the Hammondsville ore body, and subjected to a series of laboratory flotations with these three reagents. You see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, what they say is that N-butanol plus citric acid proved 20 times as effective as ultra-wet DS in suppressing asbestiforms. N-butanol alone was 7 times more effective, right? So we have that as our baseline.
I have that as a baseline from the particular person who wrote this report.
Sure.
What background, what other data they have to substantiate that, I have no idea what that could be. This is just, again, a single report, and it's very difficult for me to comment on it more than that.
Again, if you had spent some time with this report, you might have answered to those questions that you have in your own mind about it. Fair?
Your Honor, argument
It is. Don't answer that. Jury will disregard that statement. We're going to take a lunch break now.
Okay.
Members of the jury, we're having a half-hour break today for lunch. Leave your notebooks here. Remember the instructions I provided to you with regard to this case. No discussions, including with regard to the testimony you just heard, and no research of any kind whatsoever. Please be ready to come back up at 12:45. Enjoy your lunch.
Thank you.
We're off the record.